Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's demo on how to use pre-preserved lemons in your daily cooking. So for those of you who have missed the presentation on how to make preserved lemons, go back to, if you're watching this on Facebook, then go to the section on the left side that says videos and look for the preserved lemon recipe. I'm showing there how to make this. It takes about 30 days at the minimum to make this. And so I made this about 2 months ago. And made lemons and limes. And so today, I know many of you have participated in making the preserved lemons. So I want to do justice and actually show you how do you use these preserved lemons, because I know in Western culture it's not like an everyday thing that we use, unless you come from a Middle Eastern background, you're like from North Africa, like maybe Tunisia or Morocco, then Algeria, then you know what to do with that. In these countries, preserved lemons are super standard, like, you know, they're like a condiment the way we use ketchup in Western countries. So today I'm going to show you a really simple recipe of tapenade, which is basically a form of a condiment, right? Which is basically the main ingredient are crushed olives. And so I've got a couple of different olives here. I'm going to be showing you what to do with them. But before we dive into the recipe itself, I just want to mention that this recipe is also in my cookbook. So the cookbook, forgot to bring it down, but it's down there, up there on the shelf. And Jean, if you could post the link, that would be great. Cooking for Hormone Balance is the book title. You can get it on Amazon. We also have this recipe, so there's a modification of that in the cookbook, and there's a few other ways of using the lemons in my cookbook, including different stews. But we also have the tapenade recipe available on our website. So Jean, if you could pop that over, that'll be great. The recipe that we've recently posted. So I want to just tell you first why bother with these lemons in the first place, right? And so you can see these beautiful yellow lemons. They are kind of transformed from when they first went in there. And these are limes, right? So they were bright yellow, green before, they kind of became yellowish. They taste very similar, so you can use one or the other. So the reason is that we love preserved lemons in our Hormones Balance community is for a couple of reasons. Number one is because they're highly alkalizing. And so everybody knows that, you know, like lemon juice first thing in the morning is very alkalizing for the body, right, for the blood. And it's very true, and it helps you also increase your stomach acid, which is wonderful. You want that. So it's all of that. So as alkalizing helps with stomach acid production. But then furthermore, it's also, what I love about it from a hormone perspective is that the skin, and let me just actually open this up, and oh, it's got a little bit of a hiss to it because it's still fermenting. So one of the things you'll see is that, let me just actually, this has been sitting in, that salty water, sorry, it's not water, it's salty juice for the past 2 months. So you can see it's kind of very nimble, right? And falls apart very easily, unlike a typical lemon. And so, you know, imagine like taking a bite on a lemon skin. Very unlikely that's going to taste any good, right? It's just going to be like, oh, that's really bitter. Well, not this. Like, it's amazing what salt and thyme can do and transform this into a very delicious, pungent, lemony for sure, but pleasant condiment. And so from hormones perspective, the skin contains something called D-limonene. D-limonene is one of the liver detoxifiers. It helps us to clear out a lot of the dirty estrogens. So women dealing with estrogen dominance is a wonderful way of supporting your liver to carry those estrogens out as quickly as possible. And lastly, as you can see, this is a fermentation process, right? This has been sitting in a salty brine for the past 2 months. And by the way, just so that you know, this really doesn't have a time limit. I remember once I made this, for the first time I made it, this was many years ago when I was living in Shanghai. And then I put my things to storage for, I think it was like a good 6 months before I knew where I was going to live next. And believe it or not, I actually put these lemons, because I didn't want to throw them away, I put them in storage. And so they were sitting in hot, steamy, moist Shanghai. And then I shipped them over to the United States thinking, I don't know whether they survived. And I thought maybe they're going to get moldy or whatever. Nothing. I continued using them for the next couple of months. and different condiments. So there's really no time limit. You can't really go, it's not going to get moldy, it's not going to go bad. One thing you have to remember, and I talk about in the recipe itself, you want to keep them submerged. Mine aren't fully submerged right now because I've been kind of lazy. But even that, they don't develop any mold, but I will top it up with some lemon juice as we go. All right, so enough of talking. Let's get cooking. It's not really cooking. It's more like, it's just a condiment preparation. What I'm going to be using is olives. Now, you can use either green or black olives. It really depends on your preference. What do you prefer? What tastes better to you? And so the black ones here, and I've got Kalamata olives, and then these ones here, I can't remember which ones are those. So just for, in our recipe, we use Nicoise olives, sorry. So these are the ones, Kalamata or Nicoise, either one will work. Just for a bit of diversity, I'm just going to use the green ones, okay? The second ingredient we're going to be using are capers. Again, this is completely optional. It's really not the star of the show. The star of the show is going to be the lemon, and it's going to be the olives, okay? I'm going to put these aside. The third ingredient you want is olive oil, good quality one. For those of you who have signed up for our olive oil club, this is where I'm getting my olive oil from, and this is absolutely wonderful quality. As an option, and I'm doing a total modification here, is who can guess what this is? If you can see this a little bit more detail, who can guess what this is? And so it's going to be a bit of a delay, so I'm just going to tell you. So say anchovies, and so very high in iron, and I absolutely love anchovies. And so this is another thing that's completely optional you can put in. So the recipe is super simple. I don't cook with like measuring very much, and so honestly, writing a cookbook was a massive challenge because I had to measure everything, and I'm not much unless I'm baking, but otherwise I'm kind of throw it together kind of a girl. So the cookbook was really stretching me in every way possible. So the exact measurements are in the cookbook, in the recipe, and in the cookbook that Gina's gonna post. I'm using here about a cup of, you want to make sure you're using obviously pitted olives and not with the pits. And then as for capers, they're just going to be adding a little bit of that tang, which is also going to come from the lemons. I'm just going to do like maybe 2 tablespoons of capers. Again, this is totally optional. You don't have to. And then what we're going to do is, for this amount, I'm going to use half of the lemon. Now, the trick with the lemon is that you definitely want to be removing the seeds from the lemon. The pulp can stay. That one is not a big deal, but you definitely don't want to use the seeds. So I'm just going to remove those. I'm wondering how many of you here have actually made the preserved lemon with us. This was about 2 months ago. I was doing that in, remember, December, I think beginning of December. So I'm just going to roughly chop it up. I'm using half a lemon, right? And then just throw it in here. And in order to make this all swirl, we're going to be using some really good quality olive oil. And again, the recipe shows you how much. I'm just going to eyeball it and see. It just has to be enough to get the blades to move and swirl. So, how many of you here are using NutriBullet? I love my NutriBullet. Couldn't live without it. Now, the whole idea is not to like make it into a paste, but something you want to just basically give it a bit of a whiz. And the idea is to make it kind of chunky. That's how Tapenade is, and not a paste. Okay, so it's pretty much okay. Now this will stay in the fridge for easily a month, and one of the things in order to preserve it is when you transfer it over to a container. I like to use more like taller, slimmer containers. Is that you definitely then would want to what you want to do is top it up with some olive oil to kind of seal it. And by sealing it that way, you don't have any bacteria developing in your condiment. Now, so what do you use it for? Let me just taste it first. Fantastic. So typically, something like that, tapenade, you would use that. I mean, I'm wondering, how do you guys use that? It's a very standard condiment in Spain, in North Africa as well. Some countries, like some of the Mediterranean countries, use it on a pretty regular basis. I'm wondering how many of you are using that on a regular basis. And so in my daily cooking, I will use that very often on, let's say, if I roasted a fish, if I cooked it on the stove, just sauteed a fish and I put that on top on a piece of meat. I'll have, like, just the other day, I put cauliflower in an Instant Pot for a few minutes, it softened it, and then instead of doing dressing, I basically use this as dressing because it's so salty, right? It adds on that, and lemony. So it gives you that lemony, zesty kick and the saltiness already, so you don't even need to salt your food. Sometimes I'll put it on top of toast, like if I want to have just a quick snack before going out. I will toast some bread, gluten-free bread, of course, and then put this on top. Really simple. She's making supper. Katie's saying, I'm making supper, but we'll definitely watch this later. Okay, awesome. Great. So let me take a look at what are some of the comments that we have coming in. And Jean, I think I will have to ask you to post them on Skype again because I can't get into our Facebook right now. So see what we are getting. Is there any questions there? Or the other thing we could do is, because I'm actually a little bit pressed for time today, what we can do is, if you're watching this on replay, or you're watching live, then I'm just gonna go in later and answer the question as you post that in. So wasn't that super simple? Just really, really wonderful way of using a preserved lemons. Just a quick, another method of using that in you know, many of you know that I grew up in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, and also lived for 4 years between Hong Kong and Shanghai. So I've spent 22 years of my life in Asia, and preserved limes are a very common condiment, but also as a way of eating, bringing in something fermented to your life. And so one of the things that are using it in is drinks. So one of the recipes I'll present, maybe more so over summer, but if you want to try it now, you can do that too, is basically taking that lemon, crushing it in a glass, and then putting a bit of sparkling water, perhaps just a tiny bit of a sweetener like honey or maple syrup or stevia if you don't want to do sugar. Just a very refreshing, wonderful drink, but I'll keep that for the summer months. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making this video here for you today. And let us know who's going to be trying this, because you know, it really is a wonderful way of bringing in alkalizing food that is hormonally balancing and is probiotic rich. All right, everyone, make it a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.